Yo, I am here with Brandon, who got 10th place at the regional Thursday in Columbus for the Digimon card game. Hang on, I know, wait a minute. I normally don't make Digimon content, but this is something super cool. I work at the shop that he plays at, and it's a really just cool experience. So don't unsubscribe. I promise there's not a lot of Digimon content coming to the channel, if any at all. Just really wanted to do this. So let's get to it. So you played Imperialdramon, yeah?
Yes, I did. So Imperialdramon's my favorite Digimon to begin with, and I just knew I wanted to run it as soon as it was the information for it was released. So the deck's pretty simple. You've probably seen a million deck lists like it, but I kind of, I feel like I tailored it to my play style. Starting off with the eggs, running one Upa, just because, that extra card draw, and running 4 eggs of the Demi Vmon with jamming, or that care about jamming. Mainly because it feels like the most relevant. Honestly, this is one of the spots of the deck you could kind of play around with. You could only run Upa, you could only run the Demi Vmon, but it makes a lot of sense either way because you just want that card draw. That's the most important part. I'm running one of the...
You can lay them down, yeah.
I'm running one of the Vmons from BT8. It's really good if you really need to grab something, like you're really digging for that Imperialdramon or the Imperialdramons. Very helpful to help find that. But I'm only running one of it because it tends to whiff a good amount, but having one in there is kind of helpful. Then I'm running 3 of the jamming Vmons. They are just mainly, get an extra attack in. They trigger the Demi Vmon with jamming. Good for card draw, the usual stuff. Then I'm running 4 of the structure deck Vmons. Just, typical card draw, gets you something. Pretty much grabs almost everything in this deck, so it's really helpful. Then this is kind of one of the spots where the deck can be changed up a little bit. I'm right now running 2 of the EX1 Vmons and 2 of the ST8 Vmons. These are kind of flexible. You can play around with whatever you want. You could run 4 of either, or you could swap out for the BT3 for a little more extra card draw. These 2 I'm only running 2 of because tends to only be relevant in the first couple of turns with how much card draw is in this deck. Otherwise, you're going to be drawing just a ton of cards. After turn 3 or 4, you're not drawing off of it very often. Then everybody and their mother's running the 4 X Vmons with jamming, and the inheritable with jamming. Just a good card all around. Then we've got 4 of the Stingmon. Just a good one because it gets you, you can play it for 3, and it gets you even more card draw, and it's not once per turn. So if you attack 4 times with your Imperialdramon and Imperialdramon, you're drawing 4 cards.
I will say I like the art on that one a lot.
Oh, I love Stingmon.
I love that artwork so much.
Then I'm running 2 of the Lydramons because it's just a good way to kind of fix your colors in case you hit, you can't hit the X Vmon or you can't find the Stingmon. It's a cheap 2-drop Digivolution. It's just a good card, and sometimes you can get in an extra attack with that Armor Purge. I see a lot of people running some of the the Magnamons for blockers, but you can do whatever you want with that at that point. But running 1 Kumamon just to kind of throw in that hybrid for, the occasional win with the hybrid. Then I'm running 4 of my boy Imperialdramon. He wins games. With just the fact that he unsuspends himself, and you can attack multiple times, especially considering he's a new Digimon when he DNAs, and you can attack multiple times, so he just allows you to combo off really well. I'm running 1 Chimeramon just because sometimes that minus DP can really be relevant. And it also lets you, maybe if you don't have the jamming X Vmon and you got one in trash, you can grab it out of there and throw it under there. It really makes a big difference. And you don't even have to DNA Digivolve it just to get the ability. Then I'm running 2 Dino Beamons. I don't love it, but sometimes that buff really helps, and the stun ability for the DNA is just pretty good. Then I'm running 3 of the Imperialdramon Dragon modes from the structure deck. Self-explanatory. It spits out 2 of your champions, and or if you need to, you can even just spit out a rookie if it helps you get more card draw or something. Just a good, big beefy level 6. And then I'm running 3 of the fighter modes. It's good removal. It attacks and unsuspends itself or something else if you really need to. Really decently flexible card. I'm not running any of the paladin modes. It just, as much as I want it to work, it just will not work. 6 feels, with the megas, feels really good, but Then we're going into tamers. I'm running 3 of the Davison Kens. It's just great card. It gets you a lot of memory. It can get you, since it triggers on your main phase, you can move something from breeding. If you've got Imperialdramon in breeding, can get you 2 memory at the start of your main phase, and they stack with each other. So if you have more than 1 out because one was in security or something, that can be nuts. Now, this is the first spot that I ended up changing since the tournament. I was running 3 Davis. Really great. It's a great memory setter, and it helps you dig for more cards. On more times than not, you're gonna grab 2 cards off of it. But even if you don't, it's still just a good card to help you dig for your answers. But I'm ending up switching out one of these for a Mimi because I feel like one of the problems I had with the deck was just I couldn't get to things out of breeding fast enough sometimes, especially against those Rapidmon hybrids. Obviously running 1 Ice Wall, just a good card. Same thing with HPD. It's great card, wins games.
Yeah, both of those are limited to 1, so that's something a little bit different for anybody who's watching that normally does Pokemon stuff. Digimon does have a restricted list, so it is kind of interesting to see that this is like the deck that can play both.
So then you've got Blue Memory Boost. I'm running 2 of just because, it's a good card. Helps me, again, more dig, helps with the consistency of the deck. And if I can pop them for extra memory, all the better. Then 2 Hammer Sparks. I've seen a lot of deck lists running 4 of the Hammer Sparks, and I was initially, but I took 2 of them out to run the 2 Blue Memory Boosts, and it just made the deck run a lot smoother. And then I ended up just putting in 2 Mega Deaths. It felt like a good number, not too many, not too few, enough to be relevant, and it's also not, good enough that I'm not digging for it most of the time. So
cool, that's the list. So you already said you would change the Mimi for a Davis. Anything else that you would change?
I could play around with the rookies a little bit, just because I feel like you could take out that BT8 Vmon. You could throw in, maybe try out the BT3 Vmon that draws. I've seen some people fiddle around with running 1 or 2 of the Wormmons from the structure deck. I don't care for that. I feel like that's a little bit hoping for almost too much of a slow gameplay. So basically, as far as it goes, other than the rookies and maybe fiddling around with the options a little bit, I maybe try to run 1 more Mega Death or 1 more Hammer Spark, just see if that makes a big difference. Honestly, I feel like it's in a good spot from where I like it, because I like where the megas are at. The champions are pretty much irreplaceable, just because there's not a ton of champions you can play for 3, like Stingmon, and that armor purge can be relevant a lot of the times. The only thing with it is just I've got to find a good counter for that Rapidmon, because that's pretty much the big bane to this deck right now. You can't get anything on board with if you can't keep anything on board with that Rapidmon build right now. Other than that, there's not a whole lot I would change. The Mimi's gonna, I think, make a difference on being able to keep the engine moving if you're just stalling out and you would need another turn otherwise. But yeah, that's definitely where I like where the deck's at right now otherwise.
So how are your matchups? Like a mini tournament report.
So I ended up getting a free win on the first round. My opponent didn't show up.
Okay.
I think they just signed up and just decided to bounce. But after that, I ended up going against an x-antibody deck, which was pretty straightforward, a 2-and-out. Nothing spectacular really happened with that. That Breath of the Gods can really shut you down with this deck. Basically, you hit it in security, and it just says, yeah, you can't attack the rest of the turn no matter what you do, even if you go into a new DNA. So, but that doesn't end up horribly ending your turn. It's basically shifts from, okay, I was going for the win to I need to set up so they can't blow me out of the water next turn. But usually one Mega Death to that massive stack ended up, just tearing it down. Even if it couldn't be returned to hand, you could stun it and keep it from attacking the next turn with Digimon. Then I ended up playing against, I believe my next match was Imperialdramon. That's a very aggressive deck, and if you end up having they run a delicate plan. They're, just trying to blow through your security in one big go, and they oftentimes can, especially with this build. I'm not running a ton of options, or at least not in comparison to some other decks, but when they go with, especially when they're running the promo Black War Greymon that has Digiburst and they're eating up the stack and going at your security, I ended up going, I ended up going 2-0, but they almost took the one match because they ate up their stack. The last check in security ended up being the Hammer Spark, which ended the turn for them, and I ended up being able to take out 3 of their security in one turn and go for the win. And that one was a bit of a nail biter because I had to go deep into the tank and make sure I could handle their board on that turn and win, because no matter what happened, they had something in security. If I would have had to pass, I would have lost that round. Then we've got, I think I had another x-antibody matchup, which kind of went the same as the first one, and it was just they build big stack, and I either stun it or I bounce it back to their hand, forcing them to trash a bunch of their resources. And that seems to be the big bane for them, is when you're trashing all their resources, they can't grab them back like other decks can or find a way to rebuild as easily. Because x-antibody, if you don't deal with it right on that turn, you're pretty much, you're going to lose, because they're going to blow through your security. They're going to start putting Oryukenmons underneath their stack. Then you've got, so that basically ended up being my last 2-0 match until the very end of the tournament. My next match was against a yellow hybrid, which I just did not have answers for. It ended up being, every time I'd go in for security checks, even if I had a good setup, it would be a Wyvern's Breath, or I would, even if I just couldn't seal the deal for attacks, I'd end up hitting 3 of their tamers, end up having to pass the turn, or pass the turn to them with 1 memory. Even they reset to 3, and because they have less memory than me, or less security than me, they ended up being able to somehow get all the way up to 7-8 memory. And they just were able to blow through my security with all their hybrids, and it's just not a fun time. That's, like I said, that's the meta that I gotta find a good answer for, that right now is kind of tough because it can be very aggressive. Then after that, I went into a Imperialdramon deck match that definitely was interesting. It could have gone either way, just because the first match I ended up having perfect hand and easy security. Swinging, turn 2, turn 3, I'm swinging in with a ton of memory, and I'm able to blow through their security, and I ended up winning, I think, on turn 3. And then the second match, second round of the match, I ended up, it was a little bit more of a knockdown drag out. Every time I'd get build up, take out a couple security, and they'd kill my Imperialdramon, or they'd bounce it back to hand with the Cocytus Breath. Bialstar is very flexible, and there's a lot of threats in security that you have to worry about. So that's definitely something that makes a big difference when approaching that one. But yeah, that was pretty much it as far as matchups go, and I ended up going 5-1, and that was my, with one free win and my one loss being to hybrid, and definitely no shame in that because that hybrid's just a tough meta to beat right now. And the biggest thing about with changing game plans can be tough, especially with that yellow hybrid seems to just be built to tear down Imperialdramon basically. So yeah, that is pretty much how all I got for that.
Right on. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to say? Any shout outs you want to give to anybody out there?
No, I had a great time at Origins. It was a great convention, and had a blast with everyone I got to play with. So if I got to play with you, it was nice meeting you and had a fun time.
Awesome. Well, that's it. That'll do it for the video. Thanks for the deck profile, my dude. And see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't like to subscribe, that's fine because this is different than normal. And I'm sorry, but don't unsubscribe. I love you all. Bye.